Vitamins A, C, and E are the old school. So all of us, we're looking in the rearview mirror if we're taking a multivitamin and thinking that that's all we need. The new school is that small amounts of vitamins are essential, but once you get into the super physiological doses, the high doses, you can actually kill yourself faster. So a little is not necessarily, more is not necessarily better. So one of the studies we'll talk about is how a common vitamin is killing you substantially faster rate than at lower dose, at higher dose at lower. Would you like to find that out? So let's go back to the core four: Ninja Red, OmegaGize3, and that's what we're going to talk about now, stress away, and dental hygiene. We had Omega Blue. How many of you were using or are using Omega Blue? And so a couple of you. And then, once again, why did we evolve this? Well, we evolved it to improve the product. Since we launched this 3 years ago, so much new data has come in on omega-3s and on some of the components that we felt that it needed to get changed and improved. The same way Ninja Red needed to be improved, this needed to be improved. A lot of studies suggest that fish consumption is associated with a low incidence of cardiovascular disease and stroke. American Heart Association did a review, and they cited one paper that did 36 countries, across 36 countries, a markedly lower risk of heart disease and stroke found in those who consume the most fish. In the Okinawa centenarian study, the people that live the longest consume the most fish. Okinawa, 81.2 years. In the US, we consume far less fish and we don't live as long despite having the highest cost of medical care in the world. So interesting, we're only 2, 4, 6, 7, number 7th in longevity, but we're number 1 in the money spent. So do dollars spent necessarily equivalent to healthier or longer life? Once again, it's not about emergency medicine. It's not about treating sickness. It's about reducing risk and about fostering wellness. That's what we want. One of the things they found was not just a higher intake of omega-3s, but a higher intake of fruits and vegetables and flavonoids as well. One of the things that are good about omega-3s is they can lower triglycerides in the blood, they can reduce blood pressure, decrease the risk of abnormal heart rhythm, slow plaque buildup in the arteries. They're also linked to improved cognitive function in studies. There's also a basis for them in helping reduce mood disorders, depression, etc. Studies also suggest that a high intake of fish can be a factor in reducing the risk of Alzheimer's disease. Similarly, omega-3s can lower your risk of cancer as well. Studies also found that DHA and EPA omega-3s from fish have an anti-obesity effect. Same thing with the University of South Australia, who showed that fish oil supplementation with moderate exercise can reduce body fat. Omega-3s have an anti-inflammatory action, especially with 2 grams or more of DHA and EPA. Below that, you don't see as much anti-inflammatory activity in some studies. So the University of Southampton in the United Kingdom asked the question, omega-3 fatty acids, are they nutrition or are they pharmacology? I think they're deadly. And we're going to go into that in a minute. So the question is, how do we get our omega-3s? Do we use a vegetable source like flaxseed, or do we use a fish source like herring or sardine? Which ones would you use? How many would vote for flaxseed? How many would vote for herring or sardine? So about half as many. So twice as many vote for flaxseed, half as many vote for fish. The problem with omega-3s from flaxseed is that the brain, the heart, and the eyes contain none of the omega-3s from flaxseed. Only DHA and EPA found in fish, the omega-3s in fish, are in the architecture of the eye and the brain. There are no flaxseed omega-3s that actually constitute the structure of your brain and eyes and heart. This is a flaxseed omega-3. Now I want you to tell me if this flaxseed omega-3 looks like the fish oil omega-3s. They look very different to me. Do they look different to you as well? So if these omega-3s form the architecture of the brain, these fish oil omega-3s, and these do not, which is the best source of omega-3s? Well, veggie omega-3s are great, but they get lost in translation. So it takes 3 different delta-3, delta-4, delta-5, delta-6 desaturases, delta-4, 5, and 6 are called, to create a fish oil DHA from a flax oil ALA, or alpha-linolenic acid. So 3 steps are required for the flaxseed oil to be converted to a fish oil type fat in your body. Because remember, flax oil type fats do not exist in your body. They have to be created. The problem is they get lost in translation. So imagine you have a sentence in English that goes to Russian, that goes to French, that goes to German, and then goes back to English. So what happens in the body as we get older is that we are unable to properly convert in large amounts the flaxseed omega-3s into the useful building blocks of the brain and eyes known as DHA. Now, the JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, on September 12th of last year published an article, so review article, and quote, they found that overall omega-3 polyunsaturated fatty acid supplementation was not associated with a lower risk of all-cause mortality. Was not associated with a lower risk of all-cause mortality. Why? So you're telling me that all these users of omega-3s, and a lot of you use them, you're just taking a placebo. You're taking a very expensive but probably worthless supplement. Because according to JAMA, you're not going to live one day longer if you use them. And in fact, there's studies that suggest that in fact you will die a lot sooner. So what are we missing when someone advises us, when someone says, take omega-3s, it's good for you? What gets lost in translation? Are we missing the whole story? Well, I don't purport to have the whole story, but I'm going to tell you parts of it that I understand. I've been studying this for 15 years. One of the questions we ask about omega-3s and any dietary supplements, do we take them for better or for worse? Do we really need what we're taking? Do we really understand the consequences of taking an isolated nutrient in large amounts? We know that fish have heavy metal issues. I've never been a fan of fish oil, to be honest. Even worse, fish oil has what they call PCB problems, polychlorinated biphenyls, part of these synthetic man-made chemicals related to endocrine disruption, related to cancer, and autoimmune diseases, along with nervous system damage. A study in the United States actually showed, and in fact there's a lawsuit currently underway against the major sellers of fish oil, that many of these fish oil supplements, if not most of them, contain PCBs. And they know they contain them, and they sell them anyway. But mercury or heavy metals in fish and PCBs in fish are minor problems with fish oil. There is a universal problem with every omega-3 oil that exists, whether it's krill, whether it's flax, whether it's fish. It doesn't matter what the source. Can any of you guess what the universal fatty acid problem is and is directly linked to aging? Correct, oxidation. So one of the studies that was done a number of years back was at the University of Reading in the United Kingdom. And so they planned to use a fish oil only supplement in groups for 9 weeks as a control. And it was considered but abandoned on ethical grounds because the risk to health of an extended period of oxidative stress. So they abandoned the whole trial. Why? So they abandoned this entire control arm of fish oil only because it was unethical to have fish oil without an added antioxidant due to an extended period of exposure to risk of health of fish oil alone. University of Illinois found similar results in their study. Feeding a purified diet containing fish oil omega-3s without an added antioxidant leads to rapid autoxidation or rancidity of the oil once it's been ingested. Other studies done in Spain suggest that excessive omega-3 intakes might be associated with a greater risk of neuropsychiatric deterioration. So your brain is not happy when you're consuming great omega-3s without added antioxidant. So the skin has a lot of fat in it, we know, because you take the skin off of chickens because of the fat content. Human skin has a lot of fat also. So what happens to two identical twins, and what represents oxidation of fats that we can understand and see? So there's identical twin A, there's identical twin B. B paired to the twin that has a lot less oxidation of lipids or fats. So imagine what's happening in our body. Studies done at the University of Tohoku in Japan said that DHA or omega-3 oil ingestion may undesirably affect tissues by enhancing susceptibility of cell membranes to lipid peroxidation and by disrupting the entire oxidative system of the body. So what are they talking about? So it disrupts the entire oxidation system of the body. So the more omega-3s you use, the faster you're depleted of vitamin E. Why? Because your body's trying to, these fats are long chain and unstable, and your body's trying to protect the integrity of them as they use them as building blocks in the eyes, the brain, the heart, and the liver. So the big question on omega-3s is, while they deplete the body of vitamin E, what other damaging effects can they have? Well, the solution would be, if fish oils deplete the body of vitamin E, why not add a lot of vitamin E to the fish oil? And that would make sense. Because vitamin E is an oil-soluble antioxidant. And then according to Joe Mercola, if you're taking fish oil, a fat-soluble antioxidant is crucial. Crucial, he said. Not suggested, not recommended, but crucial. Because the literature suggests that omega-3s or fish oil or flax oil by themselves, without an oil-soluble antioxidant, can be damaging to your health. So if you look at oil-soluble antioxidants, the question I would ask is Ninja Red or is pomegranate juice an oil-soluble antioxidant? Okay, so if I put some fish oil in here and I add some Ningxia Red, will they mix together? So will those two mix together? So I don't think that Ningxia Red is an oil-soluble antioxidant. It's a water-soluble antioxidant primarily, although there are some oil-soluble components to Ningxia Red. So if I'm going to retard the oxidation or rancidity of this oil both in the bottle and in my body, Ningxia Red is probably not going to be as helpful as I would like. They simply don't mix. Oil and water do not mix. So really the key to proper nutrition is adequate intake of both oil-soluble antioxidants and water-soluble, which is why Ningxia Red and OmegaGize are so important to take together. So vitamin E is really a must to add to fish oil. The question is, how much should you add? We've added 15 IUs of vitamin E to OmegaGize3. The question is, what is vitamin E? Is it alpha, beta, gamma, or delta tocopherol? Is it alpha, beta, gamma, delta tocotrienol? What is it? Is it all of these or none of these? And which of these do you find in supplements? Any of you guess? So if you look at 99% of vitamin supplements on the market, and we all take vitamin supplements, I don't. I wouldn't touch them. And I get them for free. You'd have to pay me $100 a day to take a vitamin. You'd have to pay me a $100 bill, and then I'd take one. So if you look at the best-selling vitamin supplements, and this one is the really best-selling, max potency, whole food energizer for women, for men. They sell, this is one of the best-selling in the world. Can you see which vitamin E, what is their definition of vitamin E that they give you? Can you see it? Let's blow it up. What are they giving you? D-alpha tocopherol succinate, 200 IUs. On the surface, there'd be nothing wrong with this. Okay? It's max potency, 200 IUs. But now let's go back to our definition of vitamin E. Which of the 8 isomers or isoforms of vitamin E exist naturally in an avocado or in an almond? All of them exist naturally, all 8. You will find in an avocado or an almond, but they're only giving you one of the 8. Because studies in the 1920s suggested that rats give birth better. That's the reason tocopherol, it aids in birth. That's the reason. And it's a good antioxidant. The question is, on the literature is, what about these other 7 isoforms of vitamin E, and why don't they include them? This is an interesting study at the State University of New Jersey. It was published a couple of years ago. We recommend gamma and delta tocopherol vitamin E forms, but not the common alpha tocopherol as promising agents for breast cancer. So the one everybody's using as in the vitamin supplements are not going to help you for breast cancer, only the other ones that are not included. And you only get those from whole foods. Let's look at some more studies. Annals of the New York Academy of Sciences. Tocotrienols are the components of vitamin E responsible for the growth inhibition of human breast cancer cells. Well, tocotrienols are very different than the tocopherols and the alpha tocopherol found in all the vitamins. Those are the 4 weird cousins of vitamin E that you rarely see in the diet. Another study from the University of Arkansas a number of years back, mixed tocopherol preparation was much superior to ordinary alpha tocopherol in terms of muscle or myocyte protection. So here again we see nature's composite outperforms the isolated 1 of 8 solution. Now, what does the literature suggest on isolated vitamin E, or the alpha-tocopherol that's commonly used as a vitamin? Well, in the Finnish smoker study published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 1994, they found that unexpectedly we observed that alpha-tocopherol had no effect on total mortality, although more deaths from hemorrhagic stroke were observed. Well, that's disturbing, that the ordinary vitamin E that we're all taking in dietary supplements helps us die faster. Now, that was done in 1994. Let's fast forward 12 years to the Johns Hopkins study that was published in the Annals of Internal Medicine. Edgar Armstrong III found that high-dosage vitamin E supplements can increase the risk of all-cause mortality. And you see here, the more you use, the faster you die. So once you get up past 110 IUs of vitamin E, you can see your risk of dying of all causes goes up dramatically. So now we ask ourselves, in the vitamin, we saw the vitamin, so are they giving you a good amount of vitamin E? Is this amount of vitamin E helping you or hurting you? So more is not necessarily better. So we have selected 15 IUs deliberately in the OmegaGize3, and we're going to tell you why at the end of the lecture. We have chosen rice bran oil as a source of natural mixed tocopherols as invented by God. Man, I believe we just don't know enough, no matter how much science we have. And I am still a student of nutrition. I am learning the same way you guys are. I just don't have a life at night, and you guys do. So we use rice bran oil as a source of mixed tocopherols. Now the question is, let's go back to preserving the rancidity of the omega-3s once you've ingested them. So as your body incorporates these omega-3s in your brain, heart, and eyes, how do you stop them from going rancid? Well, if you put a bunch of vitamin E in to stop the omega-3s from going rancid, that's not good according to the literature. So is there something more effective as an oil-soluble antioxidant? Well, we measured pure vitamin E oil, and we got an ORAC of 33,098. So how does that compare with some essential oils? Well, there was literature suggesting that German chamomile oil and its active component chamazoline had strong effects in retarding lipid peroxidation or rancidity of fats. So looking at this type of research, I subjected and tested German chamomile as an ORAC and its antioxidant value, and I compared it to the pure vitamin E. This is one of the reasons why German chamomile is in the OmegaGize3. It's one of the most powerful known oil-soluble antioxidants. I asked another question. What other oils are a better oil-soluble antioxidant than German chamomile? What about clove? I've tested a lot of essential oils, and the results I got back were amazing. Over 10,700,000 in ORAC activity compared to vitamin E at 33,000. And you could see the results right there on the original report from Brunswick Labs. So if I am going to use an oil-soluble antioxidant to stabilize the fats in my body and retard them from going from decay and lipid peroxidation as I age, I'm going to use clove oil rather than vitamin E. The only question is, what are the side effects of using so much clove? Well, one of the side effects is it reduces cholesterol oxidation in your blood. It stops LDL cholesterol from becoming rancid or oxidized, which many scientists believe is more important than just high cholesterols as the genesis of heart disease. Another effect they noted, and you can see here how small amounts of eugenol from clove oil dramatically retard the lipid peroxidation of LDL cholesterol. It also had an inhibitory effect on lipid peroxidation in red blood cell membranes. And what do red blood cells do? They carry oxygen, they give you energy, they give you life. So essentially, clove oil is giving you life. They've looked at lifetime feeding studies in animal and measuring the long-chain fatty acids, the DHA, in the eye and the brain. And just the daily feeding of a small amount of clove essential oil over 17 months of an animal resulted in marked retardation of the rancidity of the lipids in the eyes and the brain. So these work when you ingest them. And when we go back to the Okinawa centenarian study, you see once again that the 100-year-olds had markedly lower levels of lipid peroxides or rancid fats than did the 70-year-olds. So it's definitely somehow correlated with longevity. What's interested in macular degeneration? We talked a little bit about zeaxanthin and the Ninja wolfberry. What's fascinating also is studies that suggest that omega-3s work with zeaxanthin in a synergistic way to help protect eyesight as we age. Studies in Germany at the University of Munich actually compared clove oil and anti-inflammatory activity. What do you think the results were? So you can see here the data, eugenol and eugenol acetate, which are the chief components of clove, that's about 95% of the oil, compared to pure turmeric. At least twice the anti-inflammatory activity that clove has compared to the anti-inflammatory activity of turmeric. So these are the reasons why we add clove and German chamomile to the OmegaGize3. And we've increased the amount from the Omega Blue, the old version, to the new OmegaGize3. So substantially higher and improved lipid-soluble antioxidant activity. But the puzzle gets more complex, unfortunately. As you increase the level of oil-soluble and antioxidants in your body, will you create unbalances that are unintentional, but maybe that could be detrimental to your health? Well, we have reviewed the literature extensively on the topic, and one of the oil-soluble vitamins that have been affected is actually not even a vitamin at all. It's a hormone. So can you guess which hormone is impacted with the ingestion of omega-3s and oil-soluble antioxidants? And they believe it is the most valuable hormone in the human body. Let's look at this hormone. It's created from the sun, and it's called vitamin D. So it's easy to get. If you have fair skin, pale skin, you get out in the sun and you create ample amounts. You also increase the risk of basal cell, squamous cell carcinoma, as well as malignant melanoma. Darker skinned people have even a higher prevalence of vitamin deficiency than fair skinned people because of the poor conversion. And in fact, in African Americans and those with the darkest skin, up to 82.1% are seriously deficient in vitamin D. Vitamin D is essential for strong bones. Studies in postmenopausal women have shown that vitamin D helps prevent osteoporosis and reduces the risk of and non-vertebral fractures. Other studies suggest that low vitamin D levels can be a factor in dementia and cognitive decline. Other studies suggest that it may be linked to a higher incidence of some cancers. Low levels of vitamin D can also increase your risk of heart attacks or strokes. Similarly, low levels of vitamin D can be associated with insulin resistance, and conversely, high levels of vitamin D can actually reduce your risk of type 2 diabetes. Vitamin D counteracts depression. And what's interesting is the link between obesity and depression. So what they have seen is, at the Leiden University in Netherlands, that obesity increases your risk of depression, but depression increases your risk of obesity. And why? Because with increasing fat, it binds up more vitamin D. Because vitamin D is an oil-soluble vitamin, or it's an oil-soluble hormone. University of Minnesota found a significant interaction between vitamin D status and weight gain. Other studies suggest that vitamin D as a supplement can help reduce weight. Amazingly, a vitamin D is one of the few vitamins that have been shown to actually increase lifespan. So in this study, combining it with calcium, people actually did live longer. So one of the questions is the combination of omega-3 fats with vitamin D. Is there a positive synergistic effects? Well, the evidence suggested that the two really need to be taken together, that omega-3s and vitamin D should be combined. So what Harvard did early last year was they started the first and largest clinical trial combining vitamin D and omega-3s. It's the largest of its kind, combining vitamin Ds and omega-3 to reduce the risk of both cancer and cardiovascular disease. And they're going to have the results for you in the next 5 to 10 years. So we're not going to wait for the Harvard study. We're just going to go ahead and use 950 IUs of vitamin D in each serving, which is 3 capsules of OmegaGize3. So now we're looking at more of a complex interaction between the nutrients, where you see that omega-3s and vitamin D should be consumed together. And that to preserve the fish oil or the omega-3s, you need not just vitamin E, but you need oil-soluble antioxidants such as clove and German chamomile. But there's another problem. Can you guess what that is? Vitamin D requires a binding protein for it to be incorporated. So there is a special oil-soluble nutrient that is required to enhance vitamin D uptake. Do you know what that is? This is getting heavy, huh?
Spearmint.
Let's look at CoQ10, shall we? CoQ10 is an oil-soluble antioxidant. It regenerates vitamin E and accelerates fat metabolism, according to some studies. What's interesting about CoQ10 is that it results in significant increases in vitamin D binding protein. So the two have to be used together. So if you consume CoQ10 without vitamin D, or you consume vitamin D without CoQ10, you're not optimizing nutrition. And similarly, if you use omega-3s without vitamin D, you have an unbalanced supplement. So the solution becomes even more intricate and more complex as we try to understand the web of all these different effects on the human body. What's fascinating about CoQ10 is it actually increases survival in animal studies. Biznikov did studies in 1981 with injected CoQ10. UCLA did a study with 0.1% of the diet, or 750 milligrams of CoQ10, and saw a doubling of the life of survival at 39 months and a rectangularization of the aging curve. Studies done 2 years ago at the University of Cordova, or Granada, found that animals supplemented with CoQ10 lived 11.7% longer. with supplements. And what they noted was that CoQ10, like clove oil, preserves the polyunsaturated fatty acids, the omega-3 fats, from rancidity or oxidation in the body. What's interesting is this suggests that CoQ10 can be recycled with clove oil. It can be preserved the same way that the fish oil is preserved in the body. CoQ10, which is essential for the mitochondria, for the engine of the cell, now that can be regenerated. CoQ10 is found highest in the liver's, kidney, and especially the heart muscle. CoQ10 reaches a peak in the heart at age 21 and declines thereafter. And in fact, CoQ10 declines in many organs after age 20, the heart, the kidneys, etc. But this vastly underestimates the true deficiency of CoQ10 we see in the real world. What do you think is contributing to the serious deficiency that we really see other than the natural, normal decline? One of them is the vegetarian diet. Well, CoQ10 occurs mostly in animal products. So if you're strictly vegetarian, not only do you not get vitamin B12, but you're going to be deficient in CoQ10. And only some selected nuts have even a small amount of CoQ9 and 10 in them. So vegetarian, usually seriously deficient, and there's another group that's even more seriously deficient, and that are users of statin drugs. Now, statin drugs have been long known to deplete CoQ10 in the heart and all the muscles. All of the statin drugs do it. How many of you know somebody that's on a statin drug? Studies at the University of Texas at Austin have shown that statin drugs lower CoQ10, and they've known this since 1990. They've known this for decades. This study was published a couple of years ago, and it talked about Lipitor decreasing CoQ10 level in patients at risk for cardiovascular disease and stroke. So the question I ask, how much Lipitor is sold in the world, and how much CoQ10 is sold? And then maybe we can guess the deficiency of CoQ10. So I looked at the leading products in the world. So these are the top 10 drugs sold in the world. Okay? Now, just in the US alone, in 2011, Lipitor sold $7.7 billion worth. It is the #1 drug in the world. The #8 drug is a Crestor, another statin. So you've got two statin drugs that combined easily are the #1 selling drugs in the world in their class. They're both statin drugs. So if their combined sales are up to $12 billion just in the US and almost $20 billion worldwide, how widespread is the CoQ10 deficiency really? 14 years in a row, Lipitor has been the best seller. So if only $278 million worth of CoQ10, ubiquinone and quinol are sold worldwide, how large do you think the deficiency really is? 20 billion versus 200 million. So not much CoQ10 is being prescribed with the statin, which means that this essential nutrient becomes essential for not just vegetarians, not just statin drugs, but anyone that wants to optimize cellular function. We have 40 milligrams of CoQ10 in 4 caps or 1 serving OmegaGize3. There is 1.4 milligrams in 3 ounces of chicken breast. So I ask the question, to get the 40 milligrams of CoQ10 found in 1 serving OmegaGize3, how many chicken breasts would you have to consume? Well, about 12 at 4,200 calories. Well, how much do 40, how much money would you spend on 12 chicken breasts? It varies on country, but it's about $22.40 compared to $1.98 for 4 caps or 1 serving of OmegaGize3. There is no vitamin D3, E, or omega-3s in the chicken breast. Not that you could consume that in one day, but if you did theoretically, if you were really hungry. So the puzzle is really far more intricate, far more complex, and far more three-dimensional. What we have tried to do is create a balanced nutrition in all of the oil-soluble nutrients essential for health. Many of these are oil-soluble antioxidants. CoQ10 is an antioxidant. Clove oil is an antioxidant. German chamomile is an antioxidant. So the oil-soluble antioxidants are even more important than the water-soluble. But you have to take them together. Is that understandable? So the question I ask is, can I get some Valor? Anybody have a Valor? Jim, can I get a Valor? Anyway, so what I want to do is show you what happens with an essential oil when you mix it with a fish oil. Because you need both for optimal health. And that's why if I'm on a desert island, I'm only going to pick 4 products. So here, we pour the Valor in here. And we watch how this turns blue. Because we're dealing with oil-soluble here and water-soluble here. You need them both. So how do you use these products? Okay? I take 4 OmegaGize 4 times a day. And that's the reason we have 15 IUs of vitamin E. So 4 times 15 is 60 IUs of vitamin E. That's a healthy level. You want to keep it well below 100 IUs. Okay? That also means you're getting about 3,000 IUs of vitamin D, which is about the right dose for maximizing your bone health. Anything less than 800 IUs of vitamin D, you're not going to see the protection against vertebral fractures. Also, you get up to about 1,600 to 1,800 units of DHA and EPA, which is where you see the anti-inflammatory effects. So it's designed to be used 16 caps a day. You can take 8 in the morning and 8 after lunch. That's how I take them. And I think you have one of the best solutions. Whatever the cost is, what is the cost of this here, Jim? $72? So $72 for the OmegaGize and $82 for the Ninja Red. You spend $150, and honestly, I don't think you need another product in the world. I don't take a multivitamin. I wouldn't waste my money. I think if you eat a healthy diet, and in fact, according to the grain, after World War II, there was something called the Grain Enrichment Act in the United States that many other countries adopted, including Australia, where you have folic acid and B vitamins in many grains. And so your B vitamins are commonly put in many foodstuffs. We don't need more of them. You get plenty of vitamins just eating a healthy diet. And we know that eating too many of these vitamins can be damaging to your system and create imbalances. The other aspects of health, oral hygiene and stress, are even more important to health than some people believe, and we're not going to cover those today. What I want to invite you to do is just remember to share what we have as much as we can. I know this is complicated, but it really boils down to just a couple of essential thoughts on the matter. Is understanding that you need both oil-soluble and water-soluble antioxidants, and these are the very best you can find. Thank you.